So welcome. Welcome everybody to the Martini Segal Theatre Center here at the Graduate Center, CUNY. This is the official opening of our international play festival, Pen World Voices. And the Pen World Voices Festival, which is a week-long celebration here with over 80 writers from all over the world in New York. Also, this is actually the very first event. The festival was started by Paul Auster and Salman Rushdie in the times of the Bush presidency, because they felt very strongly, and we all agree, I think, that there was a tunnel vision and not enough voices were heard from around the world. Publications in the United States are 95 to 96% domestic or in the English language. Only 4 or 4.5% are in other languages. Out of them, 50% is French or German, because it is helped so much by the countries. So we actually do not really hear, like in music, where we hear world music and contributions from all around the world, which is vitally important to musicians to develop their own style. We do not hear enough of these voices. So it is really a great honor to host this festival in collaboration with Pen World Voices, an organization we adore. My name is Frank Henschke. I'm the executive director here of the Segal Theatre Center. With me is Christine Scarfuto, who is a dramaturg and the producer of the festival. She will speak shortly after me. Right and left next to me are the two playwrights who came and flew in for this reading and for participation of this festival. Though there's Hadi, Marifat, and yes, thank you. And to my right is Hjalmar, Jorge, Joffre-Eichhorn, who also came in here. And they will give a very short introduction to the play, but first I would like to hand it over to our great producer and also say thank you in the name of the Segal Center and the entire team for your work. I also would like to thank our team, Yu Chen, who did a fantastic work, Michael, Sarah, especially Rebecca, Camille and Michael, everybody. So it's always a team effort. And so thank you all for making this happen. You all know how complex it is to get so writers from all around the world with support at a public college, so which could be much more, but we are happy that we made this happen. Christine.
So just in addition to the thank yous that Frank said today, I'd like to thank our director, Nicole Watson, for doing such a lovely job with this piece, as you will all see momentarily. And I just wanted to pass it off to the playwright, Hjalmar, who's going to say a few words before we begin. Oh, never mind. I'm going to give it to Hadi first.
Assalamu alaikum. بعد الظهر همگیتون بخیر خوش آمدین. I just said welcome, and it's really great honor to be here. Hjalmar will briefly talk about the play, a very small introduction that he will make, and I hope you enjoy watching the play. Thank you so much.
I would just like to start with a very brief story, and it's the story of how we decided to use the theater to deal with issues concerning more than 30 years of war in Afghanistan. And so we need to go back to 2007, when there was a brief theater workshop that was organized together by Hadi and myself with a group of 30 activists, men and women, Afghan, from all walks of life. And they came together to just explore a little bit the possibility of using the theater for any kind of problem, conflict that was afflicting Afghanistan at that time. And it was a 5-hour theater workshop that I was honored to lead. And as a result of that, there was a bit of a meeting afterwards, an evaluation, where the 30 men and women of all ages as well came together without our presence and talked a little bit about the method, about the theater as such, and in that particular moment about the theater of the oppressed, one of the kind of interactive political theater tools that some of you might know. As a result of that meeting, these 30 men and women came together and said, this is a very powerful tool. Theater is a very powerful tool. We would suggest we use this method to deal with issues that concern 30 years of war in Afghanistan and the impunity that came with it. The fact that after 30 years and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of deaths, nobody has ever seen a jail from the inside. The victims are systematically silenced. Not only are they systematically silenced, they're systematically marginalized, and further, with further injury added to the insult or insult added to the injury. And so the demand was really from these 30 men and women at that time, let's explore the theater as a tool to look at, conflict in Afghanistan and how to deal with it, both in terms of looking back at what happened as well as looking forward at what we can do in order to create a more peaceful, democratic, just, and beautiful Afghanistan. And that was really the beginning of a very long journey when from 2007 on until today, we explored different theatrical methods, including theater of the oppressed, playback theater, more conventional plays, as well as the documentary theater play that you're about to see as a staged reading, to systematically look at issues of transitional justice, to look at issues of what to do with, 30 years, 40 years by now almost, of violence. And it was a wonderful journey. It was a very painful journey, as you can imagine, and some of the stories you're about to hear will testify to that. But that was really the kind of context of where this is all coming from. Theater, not just for the sake of education or fun or entertainment, although that of course is also important, but really theater with that very political purpose of creating spaces for the possibility of justice. And this is one of the attempts that you're about to see. So thank you, enjoy it, and talk to you later.
Without further ado, we'd like to begin the reading of Infinite Incompleteness.
Scene 1. Call to prayer. A rocket alarm can be heard from far away. The first man, dressed in green, enters the stage, documentation toolbox and Polaroid camera in hand. He walks to a mass grave site, puts down the toolbox and camera, and then starts cleaning the area in front of him. He starts praying in the Sunni way. The second man, dressed in black, enters the stage and slowly walks to the garbage site, cleans up a bit, and starts praying in the Sunni way. The third man, dressed in red, enters the stage, dambra, an Afghan musical instrument in hand. He slowly walks toward the construction site, puts down the dambra, cleans the space in front of him, and then puts a small piece of rock before him. He starts praying in the Shiite way. The three men simultaneously carry out their prayers, accompanied by occasional rocket sounds. Shortly after, the Kabul, pregnant, enters the scene. She slowly walks the streets of Kabul, searching for her disappeared children.
Omid, where are you? Wherever I look for you, you are not there. Oh, Omid, everybody is asking how old you are. 3 years old. Not one more, nor one less. 2 years younger than Roya. No, I want Omid to be exactly 3 years old. He disappeared when he was 3 years old. Not one day more, not one day less. Roya, she's 2 years older than Omid. In 2 years' time, he will be the age of Roya. No. Omid will never get old. He must never get old. If he got old, they would kill him. They would kill him too. They killed Roya, and they will also kill him. Go, my son! They will kill you too! The city is full of killers! Oh, Omid. It was not you. Where should I look for you? Look at these walls, full of bruises. Just like the body of the father of Omid and Roya was slit open by a bayonet. These walls will one day be rebuilt. No. These walls should never be rebuilt. Otherwise, the people will forget the pains of the past, and I will remain alone.
Eventually, She sits down on a big trunk of wood next to a map of Afghanistan, covered with pictures of the millions of men and women who died during the various conflicts in the country. Opposite the trunk rests a small bokori, an Afghan heater. She looks at the map, takes a pile of photos, glances at them one by one, and then starts counting the dead before throwing their photos in the bokori.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The three men start working on their respective sites. The first man examines the mass grave and takes pictures of some of the victims, documenting all the atrocities that happened over the past decades. The second man inspects the garbage site, takes out a few things from a big garbage bag, then puts them back in and starts carrying the load of history. The third man begins rebuilding a new Afghanistan, arranging and rearranging the bricks and stones. In the meantime, the Joffre-Eichhorn continues counting the dead.
51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56.
After a while, the first man, while digging out the dead, starts telling the story of Haji Mokim, a Tajik male. He speaks in Dari.
I am living in Kabul. I am 90 years old. During the war, I lost my son. He was 19 years old. After 16 years, I took him out of the grave and reburied him in Shura, in front of the mosque. When I saw his body after all these years, it was still full of flesh. I was a butcher before. Now I don't even have 100 Afghanis. I swear on the Quran, I don't have 100 Afghanis in my house. I'm a tormented soul. If I had the opportunity, I would strangle all the warlords. I was a butcher, and all these people in the area respected me. I had 14 bags full of money and several thousand pieces of wood. But everything was stolen, and now I have nothing. One day, my neighbor's son, Ghafur, called me to come to his house. He told me that we were surrounded and that my son-in-law was looking for me to let me know. I couldn't go home, so I stayed there until 2 p.m. Then I went home after and saw that my son had been killed. I was told that my son was killed when he opened the door, trying to escape to the roof. When I saw my son, I didn't see any injuries on him, but when I went to the roof, I saw sprinkles of blood and pieces of his brain and clothes all over. I could not believe my eyes. I don't even know how he was killed. His mother still does not know. I hid his death from her on purpose because she was already mentally sick. Now, what can I do? There are innumerable stories like this. My son's death was a decision of God, and I accept whatever he decides. 16 years later, I unburied him. I have nothing more to say except that God should punish the cruel people. All the cruel people. I have a lot of pain, but who can understand it? If somebody finally listened to my story and did not believe me, I would not mind if they hung me. My blood is in the service of the nation. Whoever asks me, I have many painful stories to tell. First of all, today in my house, there is not even 100 Afghanis. So I play with the smoke. Today I am begging for 100 Afghanis.
While the first man tells the story of Haji Mokim, the other two men continue their activities. The second man finds a piece of bread in the garbage and eats away. The third man rebuilds the country, but time and again the bricks fall and he has to start over. The men take occasional glances at each other. The Joffre-Eichborn keeps counting the dead.
1,273, 1,274, 1,275.
The second man starts telling the story of Dr. Sharif, Pashtun male. He speaks in Pashto.
When the coup d'etat happened, the PDPA communist regime first arrested my older brother and soon after my father. Then 1 year later, they apprehended me and my 3 brothers. I was 18 years old. First, we were brought to Shashdarak, an interrogation center of Aqsa, the former Afghan secret service. There, one member of Aqsa took me into an underground room. In the room, there was a lot of blood and some torture instruments. They showed me the room to break my spirit. The same day, they tied our hands and took us to Sadarat. After that, they started interrogating us. First, my older brother. After 1 hour, they called me. On the way to the interrogation room, I saw my brother with a bloody face lying unconsciously in the yard. I wanted to speak to him, but the agents had warned me not to speak. Don't talk to anybody about anything. When I arrived in the room, the interrogator told me, I have a lot of experience in torture. If you know anything, say it now, and I will not harm you. Otherwise, look at what happened to your brother. He started interrogating me. What's your name, nickname, organization? How many people do you know? I said my name, but nothing else. The interrogator called 4 more people. They tied my hands and feet and started beating me with a cable for hours. And they started torturing me with electric shocks. The ordeal finally came to an end in the middle of the night. The next 2 weeks, the torture continued in different ways. Sometimes they forced me to stand up the whole night. Other times they made us build toilets and beat us with lash whenever we stopped for a break or even talked to each other. After 3 months, in exchange for freedom, they made me and 2 of my brothers sign an agreement that we would not say anything about what we had experienced inside the prison. A few months later, the regime changed. The remaining political prisoners were released. I and my siblings went to look for a brother who had remained in jail. But he never came out. Outside the prison, I saw an older woman similar to my mother. She was carrying a winter coat. I went and asked her, "Why did you bring this coat?" She told me, "My son was arrested in the summer. Now it's winter. Once my son is released, surely he will need a warm jacket." The old woman went home alone.
The other 2 men continue their activities. The first man digs out the dead, examines the bodies, and later finds a burqa among the rubble. The third man continues unsuccessfully reconstructing New Afghanistan. The men take occasional glances at each other. The Bhutamari Kabul keeps counting the dead.
32,017, 32,018, 32,019.
The third man grabs his dambra, sits down on the bricks, and starts playing a well-known Hazaragi song, Our Suffering. For a moment, the first man, on his knees, angrily looks up to the third man while the second man stops and watches the third man in silence. When the third man has finished the song, he sits for a while and stares into the void. Then he tells the story of Saeed Mohammed, a Hazara male. He speaks in Hazaragi.
I am from Bamiyan province. I am illiterate, and I am 60 years old. It has been 10 years that I have lost my son. 10 years ago. It was in 2000. My son was an ordinary laborer. My life was okay. I was not as needy a person as I am today. He was working hard, and life was moving on. I married him off. I thought it was better to get him a wife while I was still alive. 20 days after he got married, the Taliban came to our town, and in front of my own eyes, while our hands were tied together, he just said, "Oh, Father, I was shot." Later I found my son's dead body lying in the snow. His mother asked what happened to him. I told her to come and take a look. His mother came, his sister came, his wife came, and they all asked me what happened to Hjalmar. I said, "Look what happened to Hjalmar. Look what they did to him." They thought the Taliban had beaten him and that perhaps he was unconscious. I told them that he wasn't unconscious. He was dead. Please don't cry. It was around 9 a.m. and it was winter. I said, "Let's take him home." When my wife and I took him home, we saw other people standing in line outside a fort. 30 or 40 people were standing there. After each shot, one person fell onto the snow. I told my wife, "At least your son is now at home. Please don't cry." They killed all of them in front of my own eyes. They killed my son and another 40 people, 41 altogether. And I told my family that he was killed like these other people. That night, the whole night, his mother cried and wife cried. I told them not to cry, but that night only God understood my situation. The God who had created us can also kill us. I repeatedly asked them not to remove the cloth covering the body, but they were doing it anyway. The next day, we took him and buried him. His mother, his sister, and I dug the grave for him, and then laid him to rest. Later, a truck full of corpses appeared. All the bodies were buried on the backside of the fort. The massacre finished after 3 days. And then the people had a chance to go identify and claim their beloved. Some were identified by their faces, others by their clothes. They were difficult to identify because they were frozen and the bodies were stuck together, their blood mixed with one another. When they were trying to separate them, their clothes stuck to other people's bodies. They were stuck together and frozen. They were frozen in different positions. Everyone went and found their loved ones and finally buried them. When all the martyrs were buried, the people fled the area. We spent 2 months in the mountains. Sometime later, my wife died of a heart attack because she was remembering Anwar every single day. And my daughter-in-law also left because I didn't have another son to give her. My daughter-in-law went to her father's house. I was left all alone. Today I have eye problems and only during the day can I still recognize people that are close to me. At night I cannot even leave the house anymore.
The other two men continue their activities. The first man digs out the dead and examines the bodies. The second man continues loading and unloading the garbage. The men take occasional glances at each other. The Butamar in Kabul keeps counting the dead.
108,365. 108,366. 108,367. 108,368. 108,369. 108,370. سرزمین من خسته خسته آجفار سرزمین من
slowly pick up a piece of mirror lying around at the sites. They look at themselves in the mirror, then turn it at the audience and slowly put the mirror down. The Butamar continues her song, and the three men start walking around, politely but suspiciously looking at each other, visiting a new site. The first man walks to the construction site, the second man to the mass grave, and the third man to the garbage site. Scene 2.
421,810, 421,811, 421,812.
The three men begin working their new sites. Occasionally, rocket sounds can be heard. After a while, the second man, while continuing to dig out the dead, starts telling the story of Sabzagul, a Pashtun female. He speaks in Pashto.
I am 38 years old. I lost my husband during the civil war in Kabul. I did not have any brothers. I don't have anyone. My children were all very small, and another one was still in the womb. 17 days later, we found the dead body of my husband. When my husband was alive, our life was okay. He had a job as an electrician. He went there and he was killed there. Life was okay, but when he was killed, I had lost everything. There was nobody to help me except God. My husband was on duty. He was working in Tahya Maskan. 17 days later, an ambulance brought his dead body and he was buried. There was neither a wake nor a ceremony 40 days later. Nothing official was done for him. It was war, there was fighting. There was a child in my womb. His dead body was found 17 days later. And my life was destroyed. Everything destroyed. I sold whatever I had, like carpets and other knickknacks. My children were all small. We survived by going to the mountain to collect rocket shells. I carried them on top of my head. I was collecting them with my children. I was scared to go there, but over time I became more confident. We were selling these shells, and with the money we earned, I bought food and other things for my children. Some people were even buying stones. Thus I went to the mountain, gathered stones, carried them to the city and sold them in order to buy food. Later somebody gave us a mattress and a blanket. When my husband was killed, there was fighting and the rockets were coming from everywhere. Now I am confused. When someone tells me something in the morning, I cannot remember it at noon. And when someone tells me something at noon, it is gone until the evening. If you hit my head, you would realize my brain is not in its proper place. Now I am with my children. I have raised them, all of them, alone. It was hard. They fought with each other, they beat each other every day. 2 of my daughters are now married. The boy that was in my womb is now 18 years old. Sometimes my children ask about their father, sometimes they don't. They were all bullied because they did not have father.
The other 2 men continue their activities. The first man rebuilds Afghanistan brick by brick. The third man searches the garbage, then sits down and stares into the void. A little later, he finds a winter coat in the garbage, puts it on, and continues loading and unloading the garbage. The men take occasional glances at each other. The Butamar-i Kabul keeps counting the dead.
895,423, 895,424, 895,425, 895,426.
The second man has finished the story of Sabzagul, and he directs his attention to the wheelbarrow full of corpses. Suddenly, the first man walks over to the mass grave site and destroys it. The second man sees the first man walking back to the construction site, realizes that the mass grave has been damaged, and silently confronts the first man. Both size each other up and then walk back to their respective sites, while the third man tells the story of Hakima, a Hazara female, in a rusty tube among the garbage. He starts reading in silence, takes a deep breath, sits down, and reads aloud in Hazaragi.
My son, Shoaib, was in Pakistan. He was 18 years old. During the time of the Taliban, he wanted to come to Kabul, but the Taliban forced him out of the car because he was Hazara. He was abducted in Tangi Pulacharki. Later, we learned that Shoaib had been taken to Chorka Grande. The next day, around 7 a.m., his father and I went to Chorka Grande. Two boyish-looking soldiers stood there. I asked them, "Is Shoaib with you?" They said yes. Then they began beating his father and threatened to take him away as well. I said, "Oh Talib Sahib, oh Mullah Sahib, please don't do this to us. We are Hazara, but we are also Muslim." He said, "There is nothing we can do. Your son was given up for exchange. It was raining and we were forced to go back home." Later I said, I and his father returned to Chorka Grande, but we were told that Shoaib had been taken to Maidan Shah. Hence we went to the prison in Maidan Shah. It was a long way to walk. When I asked about Shoaib, we were told he was not there. Since that day, I have never seen his face again. When we came back from Maidan Shah, his father fell ill. 18 days later, he passed away. After the death of his father, I went to Kandahar. I went without anybody to accompany me. I had a piece of paper with the address of Sarkusa, the location of the prison Shoaib was said to be. I went to the prison, but was told, "There is nothing we can do for you. You have to go and see Mullah Omar, the big Mullah. Write a petition to him, and if he gives the order, tell us and we will search for him." I said, "Oh God, what to do now?" I wrote a petition around 1 p.m., got the petition back. It said, all the people we took were sent to Herat. Another failed attempt. I returned home without Shoaib and never saw him again. The source of my sad situation are the warlords. During the war, we were hungry and thirsty, without shoes and clothes. These difficult times have passed, but my son is still disappeared. I think he is no longer alive. These days, when I see the warlords on television, I become very upset and almost want to smash the TV. It is their responsibility that today the Afghan people are more divided than ever. Hazara, Tajik, Pashtun. All this is because of these warlords.
The first man ineffectively builds Afghanistan brick by brick, takes a look through a glassless window, and eventually lies down for a short nap. The second man digs for a while, then sits down, stares into the void, and confronts the demons of the past. A little later, he continues his digging, sees that the first man is fast asleep, exhausted by the work, and briefly considers hitting him with a shovel. Changes his mind, then takes a handful of dust and throws it at the first man. The first man wakes from his sleep. He is angry. He takes a few pieces of rock and throws them at the mass grave site. Yet again, the two men size each other up and then go back to their respective sites. The Butmar Kamu keeps counting the dead.
1,107,004, 1,107,005, 1,700,006.
When the third man has finished the story of Hakima, he puts the story back into the tube and continues loading and unloading the garbage. Suddenly, the first man starts singing a famous Afghan song, Khesht.
Ha بداية خشت بوختا ha بداية خشت ha بداية خشت بوختا ha بداية خشت بوم.
The other men continue their activities, but get annoyed by the exaggerated way the first man sings. The third man considers hanging himself with one of the cables he finds among the rubble. When the first man has finished the song, he stares at the audience and starts telling the story of Zargona, a Tajik female in Dari.
I am 30 years old. During the time of the Civil War, I lost a number of my relatives. 2 of my brothers were martyred 20 years ago. My mother was martyred. And 9 years ago, I became a widow. I have 3 children, 3 daughters. My husband was working in a clinic. He was killed there. His body was found in a well. Before my husband was martyred, my life was not good either. In those days, even wealthy people barely survived. But the poor were poor anyway. Since the time I got married until the time that I became a widow, I wore clothes worn by other people, both on my body as well as on my children's bodies. This is life. I never knew who killed my husband. Somebody told me the Taliban killed him, but for me the Taliban are unknown people. Nobody is interested in the history of the poor. When I heard for the first time that my husband was killed, I did not want to believe it. From hands to toes, my entire body turned red, and those red fires have stayed with me ever since. It's been 8, 9 years, but I can still feel the pain. They shot my husband in the heart, both in the heart and in the back. Today, my life continues to be terrible as my oldest daughter is always sick. When Mudir Sahib and Amir Sahib saw my situation, they approached me and said, "Come with us and work as an assistant for the cook. Come and cook." They also put my daughter in the 1st grade of school, but that's all. This is how my life looks like. I have a dreadful life, a very sad life. Currently, I am the only breadwinner for my family. I am washing the clothes of other people, the same work I was doing before. I now suffer from rheumatism. My hands and legs are swollen. I am tired. I have 2 brothers-in-law. They live in Deda Ana, where I own 1 acre of land. Everybody knows that this is my property, but they don't give it to me. They say, "We bought it." I said, "From whom did you buy it?" They said, "Our father sold it to us." My father-in-law said, I didn't sell it to them. Go and take what is yours. Now I don't know what to do. I am only a poor person. These are the problems that I have.
When the first man has finished the story of Zargona, all 3 men take a deep breath, looking into the void. The second man drops a red glove he was holding. The Buttamari couple stops counting and starts reciting an acclaimed Persian poem.
Although I never tasted this blind and careless taciturn night, bewildering and gloomy, moving towards the brightness of dawn, I learned about the darkness of its presence, and whatever its power, it will eventually pass from the narrowness of the first light. Knowing this, I lock all the doors and begin thinking, waiting for the dawn to unfold. A silent scream blocks my throat, and I am struggling not to shout from the entrails. Like myrrh, I am sitting on the fire, and for now I sit uncontrolled. Tears are accumulating in my eyes as I resist their attempts to wet my clothes. It's been too long that the traveler walked by and that his light reflected in my window. I know I am apt to fantasize about dawn, but for how long will I have to suffer for it to finally arrive? The solitude persists. No branch moves when the bird departs. No wind moans across the roofs and doors. Not even the dog howls from far away. Nothing moves. Stillness reigns. The monster of silence torments me with fury while I am longing for the crow of the rooster. My vessel stranded on the shore of the river night, the lights of hope have ceased to signal the way. With great zest, my dreams reveal the shape of the morning rooster's wings, gradually wiped out by the eternal dark. Later, my heart creates its silhouette once more, but the steady flow of the night in its grave lays to rest whatever I bring into being. 1,633,489. 1,633,490.
Scene 3.
2,063,507. 2,063,508. 2,063,509.
The Putamari Kabul finishes the poem and continues counting the dead. The three men begin working their new sites. Occasionally, rocket sounds can be heard. After a while, all three men start telling another round of stories, this time taking turns. The first man tells the story of Abdul Azim, an Uzbek male. The second man the story of Mir Weiss, an Uzbek male. And the third man the story of Shafika, a Pashtun female.
I live in Kabul. I am 46 years old. We had a good and quiet life before the war. During the time of President Najib, the last communist president of Afghanistan, life was okay. We received some rations. It was peaceful, very peaceful. But once the civil war began, we never had a good life again. The bullets were coming from everywhere in our area of Kabul. We were caught in the crossfire. One night I became sick because I was pregnant. It was early morning and the bullets were still coming. Whenever I heard shots, I ducked. My husband was so very scared. He left. I remained alone. I left my children at home. I was getting sicker and sicker. I decided to leave. Slowly, I came out of the house. It was around prayer time, the time I left. Heads were down in order to avoid the bullets. I took a taxi and went to Sharni Nor, to the old maternity hospital close to Kawi Makaz. There the rockets were raining down on us. The doctors told me that they were all about to leave. I told them to please help me for the sake of God. My sickness deteriorated. There was no water and I was dreaming of a cup of tea. In vain. 2 nights and days passed. I was alone. One of these thirsty nights I opened a tap and drank. I could not stop.
In the summer of 1987, after months of bloodshed and killings between two warring Mujahideen factions, a meeting was called by both parties to establish a ceasefire. 56 representatives from the one side attended the meeting. From the other side, a well-known commander, despite his assurances to take part in the meeting, broke his commitment and surrounded the house with his people. He then ordered to open fire. All 56 representatives were killed on the spot. 8 of them were members of my family. Everyone in the village who was against the commander fled the area. Eventually, the women in the village went and received the dead bodies in exchange for 200 Afghanis and buried them. I escaped to Kunduz with my family. Since my father was an influential elder, we would have definitely got killed by the commander if we had stayed in the district. I was in Kunduz and could not go back to my village for 16 years. Even during the time of the Taliban, I could not go home because one of the commander's men had by then become a Taliban officer.
I currently live in Balkh. I'm about 35 years old. I lost 3 of my cousins and 4 uncles when the Taliban captured Mazar-e-Sharif in 1998. In total, 350 people were killed in our district, and approximately 150 of them were killed in front of my eyes. We used to have a very good life. I was not the commander. I was not the political leader. I was a landowner, a businessman. We had a good life. When the Taliban came to my district, all the military people escaped and only the civilians remained. And almost all of them were killed. It was summer, it was around noon. They gathered all of us, they brought us to a house. That's where they fired at us. I myself witnessed the firing. The Taliban were asking about our age. I was about 23 years old, 12 years ago. I introduced myself as underage because in Islam, you can lie to protect yourself. And I told them that I was a shopkeeper. I even showed them my door keys to them. And in spite of my lie, they beat me up and put me in jail. Then an important commander came. I don't remember his name. He took out his pistol, killed a few people, and then grabbed the machine gun and fired at the rest of us. I was there with the dead bodies until the next day. I and one of my cousins survived. I don't know why they did not kill me. Later, they put us into containers and took us to Shibergan. They beat us with batons and cables. And they told us they would take us to Dashti Lalat.
In 2004, when I was still in Kunduz province, a demonstration took place against the commander. Those who participated in the demonstration demanded from the central government to arrest and punish him. A few days after this demonstration, the commander sent me a letter asking me to return to my village. He ensured me that I would be safe. However, he also asked me to help him kill those people that organized the demonstration. I did not accept and told him, I am not a killer like you, and if you try to do anything against these people, I will join them as well. On 5th of May 2006, just 7 days after I returned home, my 2 sons were kidnapped at school. The commander had just sent his driver and 2 other people to take my children. When other villagers learned about the situation, they attacked the commander's house and asked him to release the children. The commander then killed the 2 children, put their bodies in a bag and gave them to one of his men to throw in the river. Later, I was approached by a villager who said that my children's bodies had been found.
Is there anyone to accompany?
Their bodies were brought to our village so that we could bury them.
Except God. They released all the patients. I remained alone. I said, oh God, what should I do
After we
now?
buried the 2 children,
my baby
I
and
and some
started
people from my village went to see the district governor. But he told us that he was unable to do anything. Unable to do anything.
The woman.
Then we went to the provincial governor,
I left the house
but he accused us of falsely blaming the commander. Later, the villagers themselves arrested the 3 alleged perpetrators and handed them over to National Directorate of Security, NDS.
I would not be killed. The rockets. I said
the perpetrators have since been tried in Kabul by the NDS Special Primary Court, and they were sentenced to long-term imprisonment.
My children were dying. Please.
If somebody has been tried, I'm sure the commander, there were trees! Using military power!
He spent various days in the prison.
He managed to change
there was no food.
And the perpetrators provided the prosecutor helped them escape from prison.
Just burying up to wet
Later, in 2008, people from my province went to see President Joffre and asked him to arrest and punish the commander. I showed him
47 days
and asked him for justice.
Justice 7 days! 47 days in the prison!
I showed him photos of
47 days!
And asked him for justice to be applied. The president responded, you are still young!
No justice!
Have another shot in the future!
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! Your son was killed! No justice! Your son was killed! No justice!
What would your response be?
No justice!
Would your response be the same?
No justice! No peace!
The men destroy the different sites and eventually take whatever object is available and kill each other. The 3 men lay dead on the streets of Kabul. The Butamar in Kabul comes down from the trunk, slowly starts walking around, and finishes counting the dead. After that, she recites the following poem by Hafizullah Shariati, eventually kneeling down among the 3 corpses.
2,587,601. 2,587,602. 2,587,603. When you come, wake me from my sleep. Please, don't look at me like the way you look at the cemetery and the fine people that are buried there. You must not disturb my harrowing peace. Let me be like the cemetery, where the dead are wailing in seclusion. Let the earth spin and dance, and the winter chase after the dead, when the naked woman screams in the wind and the garden of remembrance is beset by shadows. No, do not wake me up. Do not send the dead to me. Let me count all the pine trees, all the joyless girls that flow through the air and enchant me. Close the doors and windows to hear the banging of the plates. In the afternoon, next to the chair, I divide my only apple and give your part to the wind, to those who have died. When in my dream you make me cross that last bridge, I beg you not to stop speaking, so as finally to restore my breath.
She grabs the Polaroid camera from the mass gravesite and takes a picture of each of the 3 dead men. She then covers them with white cloth, puts the pictures on top of them, and delivers her child next to the corpses. She picks up the child and starts humming an Afghan lullaby, then looks at the dead, drops the baby, and starts cutting her nose and ears with a pair of scissors she finds among the rubble. After a while, she puts down the scissors, picks up her baby again, and writes a victim's manifesto. Then, slowly, she walks toward the edge of the stage, reading out the manifesto.
My dear child, although I should confess that it was not my wish to deliver you among the fire and chaos, in a place where men slaughter one another and sleep with teenage girls in beds soaked in blood, this skirt of sin unwrapped to commit another wrong. The truth is, you belong to one of the countless generations that came from this aberrant skirt. Sometimes you grow up in exile, other times among the bombing and shelling of your hometown. In one of the dark nights on the outskirts of the mountains where you lost your dignity, you were taken to the abandoned graveyard of the victims. I am part of the 3rd generation of those that were born this way and that will die this way. And I know you will not be the last, because the concept of justice is still anathema in this country of ours. Our people have passed through the torrents of massacres, bloodshed, and human tragedies, but the word justice remains devoid of meaning. Worse still, from time to time it is mistaken for the pathetic tears of the crocodile. For us, the victims of Afghanistan, justice is but one word with one interpretation. To remember us as victims and to acknowledge the eternal life of our beloved. To comprehend we still suffer in all aspects of our being, especially when those who have killed are granted clemency without our consent. As long as this definition is not respected, even the allusion to forgetting the past is preposterous, and the notion of forgiveness is but an unbearable reminder of death and tragedy. My dear child, I am not an intellectual whose mind and pain are in the service of gold and power. I am not a religious figure refraining from telling the truth for fear of losing his privileges. I am not a postmodern thinker who deconstructs the past until the concept has lost all meaning. Nor am I a traditionalist mesmerized by the specters of ancient times,